Hi everyone, my name is Joanna Yang. I work at St. John's College, but I've also been seconded to help build the Center for Asian Canadian Research Engagement, also known as ACRE.
Hi, my name is Szu Shen. I'm the program manager for ACAM, which stands for Asian Canadian Asian Migration Studies.
Hi, my name is Jenny Liu, and I'm the community engagement manager for ACRE and also work at St. John's College.
Hi everyone, my name is Shirley Ting, and I'm the admin coordinator for UBC, ACRE, and ACAM.
So the Center for Asian Canadian Research Engagement was approved in March 2022, so we're quite new. And we are a research center out of the Faculty of Arts. It actually came out of the 2021 National Forum on Anti-Asian Racism. It was a commitment made by former President Santa Ono, understanding the need to consolidate Asian Canadian research and scholarship on campus to help combat anti-Asian racism. So the Center for Asian Canadian Research Engagement acknowledges that there have been 15 to 20 years of Asian Canadian expertise and scholarship here at UBC. ACAM has actually been around for 10 years, and so the Center for Asian Canadian Research Engagement actually is a way to bring all of those pieces together to make sure that we are connecting with colleagues, faculty, staff, and students to combat anti-Asian racism and make the university and the world a more equitable place. The community engagement piece in the title of ACRE is actually very important. It acknowledges that research is not just created and done in silos within individual faculty or staff teams. It actually is done with community and in community, and having reciprocal relationships that are ethical and nurturing are actually really important in the creation of what we know as knowledge in a colonial place. So ACRE attempts to help reshape what research processes look like and how research can manifest as in the institution.
And I think I want to add that when we think about community, sometimes we kind of divide community from the university, but we also been thinking a lot about how to build communities on campus. So working with faculty across the disciplines or beyond arts, or working with graduate students that might feel like, they want to find a place that where they feel like their research, their opinions matter. So these are the two priorities ACRE has been trying to work on, and then we're very excited that to work with the team and also the faculty leadership to support these two priorities.
And in a way, the creation of ACRE acknowledges that a lot of the staff and faculty and students here at UBC who work on Asian Canadian scholarship actually are part of the communities off campus, maybe in as members, maybe as leaders. And so it acknowledges that we're all multifaceted people who have to bring our whole selves to work in this institution. And so adding to Sue's point about building communities on campus, we acknowledge that a lot of us are actually part of communities off campus. And so the hope is that through our work, we can help encourage everyone to bring their whole selves to the research process. It can be really hard and difficult and exhausting, but we're hoping that ACRE can be a safe space for people to be complicated. And and we hope that that can be a model for other people who are interested in tapping into who they are outside of their work of the university, but being able to bring a little bit of who they are inside the academy and to be able to shape what social sciences and humanities research can look like.
And I think just building off of what Sue and Joanna have said, I think building a sense of belonging is very much at the core of our work, whether that's among students or staff or faculty or off campus with community members. Like Joanna said, it's bringing our whole selves, and it's recognizing that we all have lived experiences and speak different languages and, have skills and talents and thoughts and ideas that maybe aren't welcome in all spaces, but how can we all offer that sense of belonging for each other. And that feeds into that broader conversation of how can we, offer and create and invite that sense of belonging in larger contexts in our cities, in Canada as a nation. And so it's that grassroots sense of belonging, but also in the broader context.
Yeah, I would like to share, I think like one of the most memorable community university engagement projects I've been involved with is actually our new course, ACAM 320J. It's a studio course where students can actively learn about and also practice ethical engagement and collaboration with and for Asian Canadian communities. The course is developed and designed and delivered by our ACAM faculty, Dr. JP Kadango and Christina Lee, our community partner from Hua Foundation. And we actually received a CEUS fund to support the course. And why I mention this course is because I think the course is not just treating like community engagement as a subject to teach, but it's actually actively embodying what it means to engage and work with communities ethically and responsibly. So from the very beginning, from the conceptualization of the course, from the planning, development, to instruction, delivery, like every step is collaboration, is community-based, is consultation. It's a slow process, but we take the time, we take the energy to make sure we do this right. And I think that's very humbling for me to witness. And I also want to mention that the community instructor, Christina Lee, they are an ACAM alum. So it's really nice that I met them when they were a student at ACAM and they graduated and went into like community to do amazing work. And now it's coming back to UBC, to ACAM, to share their knowledge and experience with our students. So that was just it's really heartwarming to see, yeah.
Before I was an admin coordinator, I was a student in ACAM. So I'll offer one of my experiences while I was doing that. So a lot of my work and research is inspired by my family, and namely my grandma. And there are two things I closely associate with my grandma, one being her passion for education. I remember that the first piece of advice she ever gave me was that an education is something that you do for yourself because it's something that no one else can take away from you. And the second is her passion for gardening. My earliest memories of her are of her being in her garden. But while she always encouraged me to focus on my studies, gardening was something that she was always trying to keep me away from because herself and a lot of the others who she knew gardened or farmed were uneducated in the sense that they never got the opportunity to go to school. So she felt that the knowledge she had of gardening wasn't worth learning or passing on because she didn't learn it in a classroom. And that always frustrated me because I didn't think that was true. So when an opportunity came up in my ACAM 390 class to engage in communities to produce our class project, I took it as an opportunity to interview my grandma. And at first she was very confused. She didn't understand why a UBC prof would care about what she had to say, but she cared about my grades, so she agreed to help me. So we did the project and it was published and eventually got picked up by a Chinese language newspaper. And when she saw that, she was really also still confused, very surprised, but very happy and honored that people cared about what she had to say. And since then, she's been a lot more confident and open about talking about herself. And I love that for her. And that's just one of many examples of how community engagement at UBC has, empowered our elders and other members of our community.
So one example of a project that I'm really proud of and hold near and dear to my heart is a project called Fishtails. So Fishtails actually began as a student project in ACAM 390, I believe in the year 2021, so during COVID. So ACAM 390 is taught by Dr. Henry Yu, who's one of the co-leads of ACRE, along with JP Katungal. And we had invited some speakers from the Gulf of Georgia Cannery to come and speak to the students about their work, about their site, and about some of the things that they were trying to do at the cannery, including increasing representation and diversifying a lot of their content and storytelling, and engaging more with the Asian Canadian community in Richmond, where they're based. And so we had a student team come up with this project called Fishtails. And Fishtails has a purpose to engage people in storytelling activities to build community and to build connections and bridges through, talking about seafood consumption and how do you prepare your seafood? Why don't you like certain types of seafood? And it was really an opportunity for that group to reach out to their friends and family to be part of the project. And from there, also reach out to other members of the broader community in Richmond. And so this project is still going on now. It's 2023, and we've had a number of different cohorts of student teams working on Fishtails, working with the cannery, engaging in different ways, whether tabling at events on site in Steveston or talking to their former teachers to pursue opportunities to engage their K-12 classes, creating content for social media and short video clips to share stories around seafood consumption. And yeah, really proud to say that the cannery loved this project and actually turned it into an exhibition that you can view now on site at the Gulf of Georgia Cannery. And it includes a lot of content and stories that our students were part of gathering and collecting and curating. And also really proud and grateful to say that this project has been supported by a CEWS fund as well, and that funding was very important for us to be able to compensate our student research assistants properly and also to work with the cannery to, get needed filming equipment and promotional supplies to make this exhibit a real thing. So yeah, really happy to see this project continuing, and I don't think we are planning to stop anytime soon.
You can see there are a lot of examples on how we try to connect the knowledge off campus with people on campus and vice versa. And I think one thing that is really core to ACRE's mission is to ensure that the research and the knowledge that is being produced is publicly relevant. And so with Shirley's story, there is a lot of power in an institution, and we understand that power imbalance. But we find that in community, when they feel acknowledged by a specific institution, educational institutions, arts and culture institutions, it bolsters their sense of self in a way that maybe they didn't see themselves in a certain way, but especially our elders who come from different parts of the world, primarily parts of East Asia for us. But having them be seen by an institution can be quite powerful, not just for them, but also our students. And in the context of ACAM 320J, Christina Lee was one of our students, and being able to be part of their student journey, but then as well see them become the professional and community leader that they are now and be able to come back to the university to teach is really amazing. But it was not done without many, many institutional and administrative hurdles that we've had to be quite creative with grappling with. And then for Jenny's example about the museums or the Gulf of Georgia Cannery, it's an example of how supporting students to further some of their projects that can sometimes feel like one-offs, furthering them to become publicly relevant and interesting for cultural institutions off campus, that can be extremely rewarding for us. So when I say that ACRE was created off the backs of 15, 20 years of work, actually we've been engaging museums for at least 5 to 10 years. And we've worked with many, many museums in the Lower Mainland, including Burnaby Village Museum, Richmond Museum. We helped create the Chinese Canadian Museum, and as well the Museum of Vancouver just finished their A Seat at the Table Chinese Canadian History in BC exhibit, which was actually co-curated by one of our research directors, Denise Fong, and Dr. Henry Yu. And so being able to create that knowledge on campus here in relationship with our communities, but be able to make that publicly relevant through museum exhibitions and educational content, especially for K-12 teachers, is really core to what we do. I think as well, another piece of work that we are really keen on supporting and have done a lot of is working with government, working with municipal and provincial governments, and at times federal, to help them shape their policy and help them think about the ways that Canadian policies have historically discriminated against Asian Canadians. And so I hope that is an attempt, that's a clear attempt to try to tie that up at that level of the center status. But we just want to reiterate that this work has been done for so long, and the center exists, but the people are the same. But we are really keen on growing our network and involving staff, faculty, and students that still don't see themselves represented in what ACRE looks like today. Our strengths, as you know, we have strengths, but we also have weaknesses, and we know that, you know, historically we've engaged East Asian Canadian communities, primarily Chinese and Japanese Canadian communities, based on the scholarly heritage of how our faculty came to be. But we are trying to do more work with Southeast Asian communities, with Dr. J.P. Katungal's leadership, Filipinx communities, and knowing that we would like to do more work with South Asian communities and be able to support existing community work. Another key feature of ACRE is that we understand that the Point Grey or UBC Musqueam campus location is extremely inaccessible for most of our community members. It's the tip of the earth in the Lower Mainland, and we know from community members that they'd like to see us work with them in situ where they are, rather than for us to convince people to come onto campus, which is really inaccessible. So based off of that feedback, we have plans to have some sort of office co-working space in Vancouver's Chinatown. We're working with Hogan's Alley Society, Chinatown Celebration Society, as well as the Hua Foundation to create a co-working model to be able to share space together. Right now, we're also working with Learning Exchange colleagues we actually have keys to their space, which we're really excited about. So right now, we, especially coming out of what we know as the pandemic in this current form, we understand that nobody wants to come to one place full-time all the time. We need to create some flexibility as to how we engage people. And sometimes it comes down to something as unglamorous as saying, are we meeting on Zoom? Or are we meeting in person in your neighborhood or on campus here? So we understand that in the future, as we continue to progress and build the infrastructure for ACRE, we know that means that we have to move some of our activities off campus, move some of our operations off campus, and be able to make it more accessible for Asian Canadian communities to engage with us in that way.
I think I would say be patient and be curious. I think a lot of us kind of touched on that point already, that this work takes time. And I think working like in a kind of professional environment, a lot of times we're driven by this idea of being productive. And then every year we'll have a performance review to look at what did you accomplish this year? What are the projects? And, what are your deliverables? But within ACRE and ACAM, we realize that community work a lot of times is about process. As process-based work is about building that continued conversation and relationship so that we can have mutual trust to do the work we would like to do, to have that deep impact on students, communities, and all the people we work with. I mentioned the course ACAM 320J, but the partnership and relationship with Hua Foundation, it started way before the course. We've been working with them for more than 8 years, almost 10 years by now. So it really takes like time and like different ways of coming together to have this level of trust and connection, and to say, hey, let's start design and develop a course together. Let's try this new thing that we haven't seen a lot around. Let's take this risk together. So yeah, be patient and then just be curious, because sometimes maybe you're in a 2-hour meeting with a community partner and you're like, I don't know where this is going, but sometimes like the conversation will go towards the direction you're like, oh, I never thought of that, and that's such a great idea, and I'm so glad I spent my 2 hours here. Yeah, so that, I think that's my lesson. Yeah.
I think for me, what I've learned and I'm still learning is it's about people. And so Szu kind of mentioned that too, about being patient and being present in the process. I think especially when we're doing community engagement work, it can often be stressful and there's lots going on. It's very dynamic. Things are constantly changing. So many stakeholders and voices involved, that for myself, I find it can be easy to revert to like a task-oriented approach, like, okay, let's just get this done and like check off another thing off my list. But I think in doing this work and in working with the ACRE ACAM team, I'm constantly learning and reminded to put people first, and that our work and our community really is the people. Like, people are at the core, and to take the time to, see how people are doing and to listen to people's ideas, whether that's students, staff, faculty, or community members. And also to not burn bridges, like maybe something won't work out or we see things a bit differently and we don't continue working together, but, we're bound to come across each other again and in some other space. And I think just maintaining those relationships and honoring that trust really goes a long way. And another thing that I really learned from our team too is how far humor can go sometimes. I can sometimes be a bit of a serious person, but I've seen when humor is used, it can just like diffuse tension in a meeting or in a heated debate like nothing else can. So I've been trying to grow in that myself, but just, as another tool that can be used when we're relating to each other and relating to people who come from very different walks of life and backgrounds and experiences and views sometimes. Yeah, so really enjoy working with the people in this work, and reminded to apply the energy and heart and intention to nurture relationships. I value and enjoy that in our work we have a culture of sharing food together. So whether that's in our internal meetings or a meeting with a new community partner or debriefing a project, we'll often do our best to do that over lunch or dim sum or over snacks. And I've seen how much that can change the energy of a room and bring people together, and people's guards are kind of down and you can really share in a more authentic way. And so I think food is not to be underestimated in its power to bring community together.
I just started doing this job like 3 months ago, so I can't give staff advice, but I can give myself advice. And the advice I have for myself is to reflect on how to act on my values. I think I've learned the most by finding peers my age who are interested in similar fields of work and who also value the same things. So just being able to talk with them about how they're acting on their values and reflecting on how I can do better in terms of community engagement. Also having so many amazing role models who also are able to teach me how they act on their values. It's just really helpful to also create that your own community. Just to like learn and engage and talk and have really interesting conversations about what it means to do this in a good way.
I love that you mentioned values-based approach. I think knowing your values makes it easier when navigating complicated situations, regardless if they are community related or just UBC related. I think being consistent in one's values helps increase one's street credibility, because I would say community members and community organizations are very good at sniffing out superficial attempts to engage. So if one doesn't have real intent to engage over the long term, we find that people kind of have that sense. So a values-based approach in engaging and working, it takes a long time, but over food with some humor, after a certain amount of time, it becomes easier to get working because there's trust. So Szu mentioned that the ACAM 320J course is actually 8 to 10 years in the making. And that says a lot about the process, how process really, really matters. I think another thing that I've learned over time is that community orgs don't need us. It's actually a privilege to work with community orgs. If they choose to trust us, it's because of a reputation. A reputation precedes us. So I think that's something that I've also learned in working with people. Your reputation actually precedes your name. And so it's easier to get things done and be productive or interesting or innovative when there's a foundation of trust. But it takes years to build that trust. Very, very quickly, that trust can be broken. So I think understanding the power dynamics between the university and community orgs, knowing that the university and society has way more power in terms of resources, people, prestige. But actually, a lot of the times, community members and community groups don't enjoy being reminded of that all the time. So being able to work delicately while also knowing that in our private lives, we are also part of the community. That's actually where the values-based approach to work is crucial, because if one doesn't have the values of working ethically, reciprocally, seeing people as people, seeing people as valuable, seeing people as kind and smart, seeing people as different from you, but not less than. I think those are things that have to remain consistent in one's personal life in the community, professional life at the university. I think when people sense that you're consistent, then the reputation precedes you. And then as a unit, it becomes easier to get things going, to fulfill certain goals that we have, the vision that we have, which is to produce publicly relevant content to combat anti-Asian racism, to increase equity for historically marginalized groups, to work in solidarity with other groups beyond the Asian diaspora. So I would say that for colleagues in community engaged work, it's also very useful that we get to know each other better and create our own communities to be able to create that community of practice, to be able to learn from each other and to be able to reflect. I think you mentioned reflection. So these are all things that I think Kat and Holly and Oliver, your group, Lisa, you're doing a great job bringing us together, because I think often in big institutions like UBC, people can feel very lonely. So we just want to be able to create that sense of belonging, have little communities of care that exist, places where people can bring their whole selves, and then it just becomes a better place to work and create research and facilitate processes for learning and teaching. At this point in building ACRE, we have been privileged to receive the Academic Excellence Fund from the Provost. So we have 3 years runway to think about how to better engage faculty, staff, and students to produce Asian Canadian research alongside Asian Canadian communities. We're in the process of digesting some content that we've received from community, as well as coming out of consultation process with the Provost's strategic decision support team. And right now we are also celebrating 10 years of ACAM, which is really big, and we can defer to Szu to talk more about that. But in terms of programming, one of the big things coming out for us is to engage faculty who are conducting Asian Canadian research and scholarship and supporting them, as well as graduate students. Being able to build communities for and alongside graduate students is really important, because we understand that they are the future of academia and the institution. And then for students and staff, I think right now the students piece is really facilitated and managed through the ACAM program. And Szu can also speak to a lot of the programming that ACAM continues to put on. And for staff, I think we acknowledge that actually at the university, a lot of our staff are people of color, women of color staff who may want to meet others to be able to connect and progress in our careers together. So we understand that building an affinity group for Asian Canadian staff is actually quite important. And it comes out of a committee called the Asian Canadian Community Engagement Committee, which was around for 10 years and it was sunsetted this year. But we understand that there actually, to engage staff, students, faculty, communities, there are shared ways to do that, but there are also different ways that need to be tailored to those different groups. Another thing that ACRE is thinking about is sustainability beyond the 3-year Academic Excellence Fund funding cycle. And in terms of getting involved, we have a newsletter that you can sign up for. We encourage you to sign up for the ACAM newsletter. And we encourage you to attend a lot of our ACAM events coming up, especially in term 2. And I'll pass it over to Szu to explain a little bit more about our celebrations of 10 years of the ACAM program.
So ACAM is heading into its 10th year. Yay. I think we've been doing a lot of, internal dialogues about kind of just looking back and looking forward, looking back, looking forward. And what we would like to do for this celebration is to actually invite our alumni, students, community members, faculty, and staff into this celebration and to kind of collectively look at, hey, we've come a long way, but also, hey, there's a lot more we can do together. The latest episode of ACAM Dialogue podcast is about the student-directed seminar we did back in 2018. And it was one of our attempts to kind of look back at all the things we did and then thinking about what we can do further in terms of facilitating student leadership, but also student learning that is tailored to student needs and student, research interests. So you can listen to that episode on Spotify or anywhere you find your podcast. Yeah, and then we're also planning an alumni engagement event in May with Arts Alumni Engagement Office, which will be announced through the ACRE newsletter. So sign up for the newsletter. You can email acre.info@ubc.ca. And we also have our annual student engagement initiative, which started back in 2016. It started with an equity enhancement fund, and then it's been 7 years. And then every year we gather and coordinate students from across campus to talk about difficult, challenging topics, ranging from sexual violence to mental health to anti-racism. So our students have been doing really amazing work, and then they will be planning a public event in term 2, which will also be shared through the newsletter.
So if there are any students out there or staff, faculty work with students, I would encourage you to check out ACAM 390A, which is a global seminar course taught by Dr. Henry Yu. I believe this year the title is The Heritage of Asian Migrations. We change the title year to year, so I have to remind myself. And this course has been taught by Henry for, I think, close to 20 years now. Most of us here have taken some version of it and now support it as staff. And so this year we are planning to take students to Kaiping, China, which hasn't happened since 2018, which is the year I was a student in Henry's class and got connected with this work, as well as hopefully Malaysia, to learn about the history, the heritage of Asian migrations, but also sustainable heritage economies and what that looks like, how people do that in places like Kaiping, in Penang, in Malaysia, and how can we apply those learnings back home here in Vancouver, whether that's Chinatown or Punjabi Market or Joyce Collingwood, and how can we really conserve and celebrate these neighborhoods in our home that are cultural hubs, that are, important spaces of social connection and grocery shopping and just life for everyday people in the community. So there is funding this year. It's the last year of the ARA funding for art students. It's a very well-funded program. So would encourage you to check it out this year because we're still working on our funding model for years after this. Check it out. Love to have you join us on the trip.